Hello. Let's get back to the topic of fixing the abusive instructor or abusive instruction. And you're going to run into, let's say you are someone who knows this person, you're a senior student, a family member, a good friend, a financial advisor, a mentor, and you're trying to help that person eliminate that quality. You're going to run into an interesting bit of resistance, which is a very false belief that if they abandon abusive practices, that they will become less efficient as an instructor. And it's a defense mechanism, but it may not be a dishonest defense mechanism. They may actually believe this, right? Generally, if you do something over and over again, and it's something that society and people around you are telling you, hey, don't do that, and you keep doing it, you have to have a reason to do it, not just an emotion. Unless it's just a powerful emotion, like fear of death. You may hurt people because you think they're going to hurt you, and you sincerely believe that, and when you feel threatened, you lash out. That's a human nature, right? But what if it's a false belief that that person's going to hurt you, right? So, again, this time, in the context of this conversation, this wrench is going to have a different meaning because it is a tool, and we use tools. So, one tool that you have is look at the results of what you're doing on not just short, but long term. And look at multiple results of what you're doing and what that person is doing. Now, for example, you may be a great master who trained in Asia and, highly placed on a particular lineage, and in your country, or if you're an American in your state, where you originated from, you were a big deal. You won the All Japan Championship, or the All Missouri Championship, or the All Britain Championship, and you were highly lauded. And then you go somewhere else and you begin teaching, and you have these bad habits, right? But you think that your teaching style is ideally suited to producing incredible martial artists. But look at your results. What kind of empirical results are you producing? So, for example, I'm not going to mention a name, but there is an instructor who was abusive, who, in all of his teaching career that I know of, produced no known national champion in Kumite or Kata, who produced no student that within the realm of martial arts was ever in a major martial arts magazine, or went back to Japan, for example, and did something amazing in that country. So even though your students you produce may be incredibly skilled, they may meet your standards, do they meet an objective standards? What I find is actually that bad behavior on an instructor, on an amazingly skilled instructor, on a very knowledgeable instructor, often drives away some incredible talent. And oftentimes they have really weird criteria of selection of who they keep. I'll say this again, who they keep. You actually have a lot of choice in this matter. People leaving, dropping out, or whatever is not really a mystery. It can be predicted. And sometimes the predictions are self-fulfilling prophecies. You may not like a certain type of person, and so what you do is you find ways to quote-unquote weed them out. This is one of the most disturbing, stupid, toxic phrases in the martial arts. You talk about weeding people out and leaving behind the best. But we're not weeds. We're human beings. Humans are actually the deadliest creature on the planet. And some of the things we've done can be seen from outer space. Some of the things we've built and some of the mistakes we've done, the ecological disasters, right? There's nothing not potent, not powerful, not potentially awesome or destructive about any human being, right? Especially those of us that aren't severely disabled, right? Someone comes into your studio with a functional mind and body, there's potential for greatness in them. Maybe you're weeding out people, though, who have an aversion to like extreme dislogic. Maybe you're weeding out people who have an aversion to seeing things that appear to break the law. Maybe you're weeding out not weeds, but corn and herbs and fruits and vegetables and trees, right? Maybe you're weeding out some of the best crops out there that have the best products. It's really a mentality. And what I'm going to do is refer to, there's a channel called Whistle Kick Martial Arts. I can't remember the name of the lady, but she was a karate instructor working for an organization, and she was a woman, and that there were a lot of hurdles she had to clear. There was a lot of prejudice against her and false beliefs about what she could and couldn't do, but she persisted. She got her black belt. She went through the ranks. She got an advanced rank, and she began teaching her own students, and she eliminated a lot of what she perceived of as abusive nonsense, right? And there were people in that organization, that federation, who riled against her and said she's ruining things, she's abandoning the truth of the style, blah blah blah. But she said every year that style held a tournament, and her students swept the tournament, right? And some of you are getting all high and mighty about, well, this is an art, not just a sport. But I mean, some of the abusive instructors I've encountered competed in tournaments and belonged to organizations like some of the Japanese organizations created the whole concept of a martial arts tournament that included striking. Right, you had prior to that judo and kendo, right? And so it has always been a part of most martial arts that get exposed to the public, right? So she said, her students swept fighting. They always did well in fighting, and some of them went on to do full contact fighting. They swept forms. They swept weapons. There was also a self-defense division. They always got incredibly high marks in their belt rank testings when they stood in front of panels of black belts that were not her, that were from other schools within the organization, and even the ones that didn't like her and thought her methods were quote-unquote too soft had to grade the students highly. So are you even taking an objective look? Are you using the tool of evaluation and logic? Are you looking at things objectively and noting, what's your dropout rate versus your rate of people who stay, long enough to, say, get a black belt or even a brown belt? What's my dropout rate at this rank? Okay, now of the people that stay, what are their performance capabilities? If my style includes high kick, how high do they kick? What is their flexibility, their strength, their cardiovascular conditioning? Do you have a device that measures how hard people hit? Most dojos don't have these devices, and when they came out, I remember there was something called impacts, and they would measure your reaction time, and they would measure your striking power. And I remember some martial arts studios began to incorporate them, and they quickly got rid of them. Many of them, or didn't. The technology didn't catch on because a lot of people had the illusion that their reaction times were faster, that they were hitting harder than they were, right? And when the truth began to come out, they decided, well, I'll just avoid knowing. Martial arts are full of avoidance behaviors. So, for example, if you practice a traditional, like invented in the 30s and 1940s karate style, right, and you pride yourself on using your full body to punch and your punching power, have you ever monitored your punching power and that of your students and kept records, seen if they improve throughout the ranks, or is this just something happening naturally? Have you ever done fitness testing of any of your students? I had an instructor that did that, and when I started Kung Fu, and I was blown away. He had fitness requirements for each rank, and he had fitness tests. Every year he would have a big fitness test and say who did the most push-ups, sit-ups, who did well on the step-ups, did a cardiovascular test, and it was eye-opening. That doesn't take away from the tradition of your style. If you conduct fitness testing and test your strength, your endurance, your flexibility, your reaction time periodically and keep score, that doesn't mean you take away from doing kata, from doing kumite, from doing basics, from doing weapons, from doing forms. That doesn't mean you change the way you do an ageuke or a gyakuzuki, right? That doesn't mean you change, but you just taking stock of your data, and you can actually see if your students are improving or not. And don't see a lot of people doing this. You could do that and stay as traditional as you want. You could work out in white gis or Shaolin monk robes and still take a fitness test, and still do a 1 rep max test or something. Because when this stuff started in Okinawa, they lifted weights. They've always lifted weights in Okinawa. They've always done running in Okinawa. They've always tried modern equipment. When they've incorporated heavy bags. If you go to look at pictures and videos of Okinawa now, they're using focus mitts. They're even using kind of modern innovations like putting stripes on the belts. And but they haven't thrown away their kata. They haven't thrown away the essence of their style. They've just found a way to use technology. I mean, when the toothbrush was invented and toothpaste, martial artists adopted it and got better teeth and got healthier. That doesn't, just because you're using a modern toothbrush instead of a twig to clean your mouth, that doesn't mean you've thrown away your tradition. You understand? What are your tools? How do you evaluate? If you approach your teaching with a concept that no one here is a weed, we're all fruits, vegetables, trees, nuts, and herbs. All of this can go into the stock pot and make a better dish that I produce, right? Most schools that have this behavior or pride themselves on weeding people out, what they do is they produce lots of novices that quote-unquote wash out, but sometimes they're thrown out, they're forced out, because you don't have a proper progression of teaching people how to spar. You don't have a proper conditioning program. You behave in ways that just seem bizarre to them, right? Generally, most civilized countries, first you let someone know what you want of them, then when they do something wrong, you say, that's incorrect, here's what you do. Then if they do it again, you're like, okay, you may reprimand them. Usually you use your voice first. You use language. You don't even have to yell. Then next time you give them a stronger reprimand, and then, in other words, you don't have to progress. Someone makes something wrong and you walk over, yell at him, and slap him in the face. Or some white belts that's been there 2 months and their stance is off, you sweep them off their feet violently and say, your stance is wrong. Right? They don't even know that their stance is wrong. They didn't know they were off balance. Sometimes you just push against people and you're like, bend your knee. Like, that's sanity, right? Those are tools. I think a lot of times people that are abusive in their teaching and in the way they raise their kids and in the way they behave, they don't have a lot of tools. I didn't have a lot of tools coming up as a teenager. That's why I started the fight. That is the subject of this, that caused the subject of this series. I don't want people to think that I'm here to condemn styles and teachers as much as point out we could do better. You're supposed to endeavor in the martial arts. In the dojo kun, you're supposed to seek perfection of character. And how can you know a person's character but by their behavior, right? You're supposed to be faithful to the way of truth, or in the way of truth, which means, yes, loyalty to your instructors, loyalty to your school, but also truth to each other, loyalty to truth. And that means loyalty to facts. If it's a fact that the typical student enters your studio and leaves after 3 months, barely skilled, saying, I did a little bit of Kung Fu, I did a little bit of Wing Chun, I did a little bit of Shotokan, and, they're not even good enough to demonstrate basics. That's actually the biggest part of your legacy, not the few people, the 1 out of 1,000 that stay and tolerate what you can do. I mean, some of those people would have been good at anything they did. I want to know how you do with people that are difficult to teach, how you deal with people that may be resistant, maybe a little smart alecky, or maybe a little slow physically or mentally. When I see someone that can regularly help handicapped people become better at skills and also happier and better at life, then I know I've seen a truly great instructor. When I see someone and they're rare, wow, you have a lot of women here and they're all amazing, right? I'm like, this guy's a special instructor. Some instructors aren't very good at teaching women if they're men, and they attempt to seduce the females and, have affairs with them. And I say, you must not like getting paid. And you must not like a dojo that's filled. That's half of the population. And many women make decisions about where their kids go, right? Women tend to be more social than men and have greater social networks, so that's a potential to bring more people into what you do. And if you truly believe that what you do in the martial arts, what you're teaching, is beneficial to humanity, you would want more of humanity and more types of humans within humanity to come in, stay, benefit, and pass it on. All right, thank you.